Okay, so now we're up to Daf Kuf Vav Hamid Beis, and having presented two possible explanations for the machlokas between Shri Chacham and Rebbe. Now the Gemara says the following: that we had a problem with the second explanation, and that would require that you bring, according to the Chachamim, first the komets of the chova and then the komets of the nedava. And the Gemara said that's problematic because you're going to violate the Isser of Mimenu Ishim. So the Gemara now answers on the top of Daf Kuf Vav Amid Beis, Amar Rabbi Yehuda Bered Rabbi Shim ben Pazi. Enochinami, he'll do the komets of the chova first. Now you're talking about the second komets, and lechora that has a din of shirayim as a result of the first kmitza, and that you're not allowed to burn on the mizbeach. The answer is the masik lehu l'shum eitzim kid Rabbi Eliezer. We have a shita Rabbi Eliezer that's going to allow us to burn the komets of the second kmitza, meaning of the komets of the nedava, through eitzim. What does that mean through eitzim? The Sadi we learned in the Brisa, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, l'rech nichoch iyatom male. Right, that which we said that you're not allowed to take the shirayim and burn it on the mizbeach because mina ishim, mimenu ishim. That's only with regard to reach nichoch. Reach nichoch means a carbon with basar and so forth and so on, to the exclusion of l'shum eitzim. Avalato mala l'shum eitzim. Now, this is a Gemara again in Zvachim Adaf Ayin Zayin. The case is that the Evarim of a Chatos, which have to be eaten by the Kohen, somehow got mixed up in Taroves with the Evarim that have to be burnt on the Mizbeach of a carbon Ola. And Rabbi Eliezer teaches that all these Evarim can be burnt on the Mizbeach. Why? Because we view the Chatos limbs, the Evarim, as eitzim, as if they're fuel for the fire. So therefore, that prohibition that we said of mimenu leishim, right, with regard to the shirayim, that doesn't apply. Why? Because we're going to bring it as eitzim. Not literally eitzim, but it has the same status halachically as eitzim, because he doesn't have an intention to burn it as any carbon, but rather to use as fuel for that which is definitely subject to Torah. So this was the Gemara's explanation for how we solve this problem in the Chachamim of bringing 60 Yisrael in one Kli. And that's going to lead us to a third possible explanation of the Machlokes between Rebbe and the Chachamim. Amalei Rav Acha Brei Rav Ashi Dilma. Now we could say the following: Kuli Alma Lo Pligi. Everybody agrees that even Rebbe that Mutali Arif Chova Ben Adava. So that's not going to be an issue according to Rebbe. He can agree with the Chachamim that in one Kli he's going to bring both a Chova and a Dava. But the issue is, how do you do the Ketara of both the komets of the Chova, followed by the komets of the Nedava? The komets of the Nedava is now Shirayim, which are not let it be burned. But the Rabbi Lezer, Komifli Rabbanan Islu, the Rabbi Lezer, for Rebbe Leslahu, the Rabbi Lezer. Meaning, Rebbe never accepted the possibility of defining the Shirayim as wood for the purpose of burning, to circumvent the problem of burning shirayim on the mizbeach. Amalei Rav Ashi is not happy with this. He says, Isal kedaita Rebbe. By the way, the Rishonim here try to prove from many places that Rebbe, in fact, never accepted Rabbi Eliezer. But anyway, Isal kedaita Rebbe mutal arif chov benedava ud Rabbi Eliezer lesle If you're interpreting that according to Rebbe, you're allowed to make this mixture of chova and nedava. But the problem is that the kometz of the nedava, the second kometz, is shirayim, and that's not allowed to be burnt on the mizbeach because Rebbe rejects Rabbi Eliezer. Is efsha de maise shitim b'chad mana, b'chad mana, umagale v'kometz. Okay, so this is heavy kachim. I'll just try to to do the best I can with the tools I have. What is Rav Ashi's kasha here? If we assume that Rebbe is matir mixing nidava and chova menachos, then even if we assume that Rebbe rejects Rabbi Eliezer, nevertheless, why does Rebbe require one kli with one isarn, a second kli with a second isarn, a third kli with a third isarn? Why not just Mimana shall cover his bases, Yotzabidei Sofek, with two kelim, just two menachos? One will contain 60 isaron, and therefore, if he pledged 60 isaron, he's fulfilled his chiyuv. The second kli will have only one isaron in it. And now we get to the concept of umagale v'kometz. He removes the first kometz. Right, there was one large kli that has 60 esronim in it, so let him remove that kometz. Then he has a smaller kli with only one isaron in it, and that's going to be the nedava. So he takes the kometz from the second kli, and now when he takes the first kometz, he'll stipulate that if the entire contents of the large kli are required for his neder, to fulfill his neder, then this kometz from the smaller kli should be on behalf of the contents. I'm sorry. This kometz from the larger kli should be on behalf of the 60 esronim in the larger kli. The second kometz from the smaller kli will be offered on behalf of the contents of that kli, which is a voluntary mincha, and that he could do because it's in two kelim. But if the entire contents of the larger kli are not required, so now he's got a mixture of chova and nedava, in which case the extra flour is nedava, then the first kometz should represent the chova portion of the large vessel, whether it be 30 esronim or whatever number it is. The second kometz from the smaller vessel is being offered on behalf of the small vessel and also on behalf of the voluntary portion of the large vessel. He tilts the two vessels together, that's called maga, so that the two batches of flour touch each other, and he removes the kometz from the smaller vessel. This attachment allows the kometz removed from the smaller vessel to be effective for the half of the nedava of the larger one. And then he proceeds to burn the voluntary kometz, follows with the burning of the mandatory one. When the second kometz is burned, there is no problem of burning a kometz after the remnants have been deficient, even if since the second voluntary kometz was removed from the small vessel, leaving the contents of the large vessel completely intact. Okay. All right, now we get to a fourth explanation. How are we doing on the clock? Okay, we still have some time. Rav Amar Dukuliyama Mutali Arev Chova bin Edava. Dukuliyama Islu Lid Rabbi Eliezer. So even Rebbe agrees that you could mix the chova and the dova in one kli. And if there's extra from the nedava, we can apply Rabbi Elazar's ruling, which again, as I said, Rabbi rejects, but whatever. What is the subject of machlokas? Hacha beplukta Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov Rabbanan kamifliki. The san we learned in a Mishnah. He tells you here that the Mishnah is back on Daf Peiches. That afilu mincha shel shishim isaron nosein la shishim log. According to the Tanakama, there's always going to be a ratio of one log per isaron. So if you have a mincha of 60 isronos, you need shishim log of shemen. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov Omer, however, afilu mincha shel shishim isaron ein le'ela luga. One log of shemen is sufficient for 60 isaron. And he derives this from a pasuk, shenemar lo mincha v'log shemen. So the mincha could be a mincha that's made up of many isronim, and log shemen is enough. That's Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. Rabbanan Savre Kirabbanon. Rabbanan hold like the Rabbanan di Amrei Shishim log. So therefore, you need 60 log of shemen brought with the 60 saron of soles. V'chol chad v'chad isaron luga kashakil. So each one of the 60 saronas has its own log, and that's great. But Rebbe Savik Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, the Omar, ein lo ela luga. That there's only one log for all 60. Now, lo yadinen, if there would be only one mincha that he has to bring with 60 yisronos, sagile b'chad log. Right? So he's got one log. And according to Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, there's only one log for 60 yisronos. But ish de menachos ninu. But let's say what he has in one kli is more than one mincha. Why? Because he actually pledged to bring more than one isaron, is to be inan shnei lugim. Then, according to Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, he'll need shnei lugim. If a person had vowed to bring a mincha consisting of 30 isaron, and then 30 isaron of the vessel would be for mandatory, and 30 remaining would be for voluntary, since these two menachos are mixed in one kli, according to the Chachamim, then Rebbe, who holds like Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, has a problem. He needs 2 lugim of oil to be added. If, however, the person vowed to bring a mincha consisting of 60 saron, then the entire vessel contains only one mincha, and in that case, all you need is 1 log of shemen. So this dilemma as to what to do with the shemen can be resolved by bringing 60 vessels containing isronim ranging from 1 to 60. This is Rebbe, right? Each vessel is then a separate mincha, for which a separate log is required. Then the person makes a stipulation that the particular kli, which corresponds to the amount of isronos that he actually vowed, is being offered to satisfy that ned. The rest are being brought as voluntary offerings. Rav Ashi Omer, finally, we have the 5th explanation of Rebbe and Chacham B'Katan, Be'evi Gadol, Kol Mifli. He's got two different kalim and 2 different menachos. And let's say he took a neder to bring a small mincha. Can he bring a larger one? Rabbanan Savre Katan Be'evi Gadol Yotza. Okay, fine. He only was obligated by virtue of his vow to bring a small mincha, but he brought a larger mincha. Fine. But Rebbe Savar Lo Yotza, Rebbe holds that he's got to bring exactly the amount that he pledged to fulfill his pledge. He can't bring more. In other words, Rebbe doesn't apply the principle, if you're familiar with this language, Yesh B'chlal Masayim Mana, that 200 has more than 100. This is an old machlokas. Why do we need a repetition? Disnan, we learned in a Mishnah later on in this Masechta, Katan ve'evi gadol yotza, Rebbe Omer lo yotza, tzricha. We need both. If we only had the machlokas with regard to Menachos, which is here, Bahakami Rabbanon, here's where the Rabbanon hold that he can bring a larger mincha and biyotze his smaller mincha mishum to idili kometsu. Because there's no difference fundamentally between a large mincha or a small mincha, it's all one kmitza. Aval hasam, but in the case of zvachim, which is later on in Daf Kuf Zayin, hasam de konafishe a murhi. If you have a larger animal, there are more emurim, there are larger limbs that have to be burnt on the mizbeach. Ema modulela Rebbe, I might think that they would have to, they would concede to Rebbe that he can't do such a thing. Right, because he only vowed to bring, let's say, a small shepsela, right? And now he brought a larger bull or whatever it is, and now, or a larger sheep, and now he has more emurim to burn, but he only obligated himself in a smaller one. If we only had the machlokas shin Rebbe and the Chachamim with regard to zvachim, by hikama Rebbe, that's where Rebbe says that you can't bring more imurim than you committed yourself to bring. So you can't bring the larger animal instead of the smaller. But in the case where there's only one kmitza, no matter what the size of the mincha is, okay, let's just see if we can chaprain the Mishnah here on the bottom of Kufavav and base. Harei alai eitzim. He took a neder to bring wood for the mizbeach. Lo yifchos mishnei gzirim. He's got to bring a minimum of 2 logs. And this is based on the fact that when you bring gzirim, which are larger pieces of wood, and you donated wood, and you said eitzim in the plural, you've got to bring at least 2 logs. That's the minimum of shnayim. Ein ribui el shnayim. Now, there's a possibility that you could bring the wood not as a carbon, but rather as fuel for the mizbeach, like we mentioned earlier. Levona, a person took upon himself a vow to bring levona lo yivchos mi kometz. So how much is a kometz? The Gemara is going to say that the kometz here is a fistful, depending upon the size of the fist of the owner of the carbon. Chamisha kmotzim heim. Right, we said that the measure of the kometz is subjective. Okay, I think we'll stop here because this part I didn't get up to. Okay, then. So let me wish everyone a great day, and thank you very much. And Mitzvah Hashem, tomorrow we meet at what time? At noon? What's tomorrow? Tomorrow's Tuesday, right?
Right.
So tomorrow's 9:30.